We've been here today for the NACRO Conference, which is all the op shops get together and talk about what they can do to strategically plan for the next year going forward. So it's their annual conference. We've just talked to them about ISO 14001 and how they can use a really simple risk management framework for their charity organisations. One thing they're challenged by is obviously funding, limited resources, limited cash. They operate in quite a tight space. So running their op shops and the charities, existing to do their great work. So, selling recycled clothes is a great way to earn the income to then redistribute the funds out to organisations and people that need them. So that's been really good. So we've just talked to them about some really simple basic initiatives that they can look at in their organisations. First and foremost, for their organisations to be more environmentally friendly, more sustainable, but then also to look at their whole industry. So looking at repurposing and what they're doing in terms of repurposing. So I've given them some ideas, been thought-provoking around what they can do for some of the bigger projects they could look at with repurposing with their position in the waste stream, which is really exciting. One of the biggest challenges for them, which we'd love to help with, is the illegal dumping that happens as part of their organisation. So they've got an op shop, it's fantastic, but they might be closed on a public holiday, and during those public holidays, people are illegally dumping outside the op shop. So if you are someone who donates to an op shop, make sure you allocate or give that donation. Make sure you give that donation at a time when the op shop's open, so they can look at what you've got to offer and what you've got to donate and give back to you something that they might not necessarily be able to sell or repurpose. Because if you just dump it at the op shop, then unfortunately the op shop's going to use the limited cash they've got to take that stuff to landfill if they can't use it, and your donation is just going to be costing them money. So have a look at that, talk to the op shop and work out what they need donated, give them the stuff they need, don't just dump stuff on them. So thanks very much for having me, and I think when I get up to do these presentations, and I do them a lot, the ISO 9001 conversation can taint, and I see a smile already, what I'm about to talk about. So realistically, we've got 30 minutes. I'm on a pretty tight schedule for your benefit. We've got 30 minutes of my time to unpack what it is that you did or didn't like about the 9001 journey, and I'm here to really talk to you about how to make ISO 14001. If looking into the future and looking into the crystal ball, I can talk to you about how to make that really, really easy. And I've got a small presentation to go through. But what I want to talk about first is why we exist and what I'm passionate about. We exist, or best practice exists, to focus on creating organisations that are fun, efficient, profitable, growth-focused, safe, and environmentally sustainable. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I get out of bed every day to do. That's why I come to these presentations. That's what I think about on the weekend. I've just been away and had a 5-week trip travelling around in the desert in Central Australia with my family. And that's what I've been thinking about. So I think about it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'll tap my wife on the shoulder in the middle of the night and say, hey, let's talk about how we can improve this stuff. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's what we've created. We've created this organisation out of this improvement journey. And right from the selection of our company name, through our company logos, which are graphs. Yes, they're a cheeky little tick, but they're a graph. And looking at how we can tweak and have this growth-focused, improvement-focused, efficiency-focused organisation. So then we talk about how we can go about doing that. The social media conversation that we've just heard in the previous presentation, we're executing on that right now. So right now I'm being recorded, right now I've got my camera guy down the back, and you can follow us on a day-to-day basis. That piece about authenticity, it sings true through everything that we do, everything that you guys do, everything that the community is doing, because it's so transparent. So whether it's the war on waste, whether it's what you guys are doing in your organisations, you can see us doing that. And that's just one of the small ways, coming and doing these speeches and talks and those sorts of things, one of the small ways that we're projecting that mission and cause and passion. So when I say I'm here to answer your questions and I'm here to help you today, it's really, you can interact with best practice on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn and all those sorts of things on a day-to-day basis, and I can keep answering those questions. So really today is about me saying hello, opening up a little window to myself and to our day-to-day life at Best Practice in the social media space, but more importantly right now, face-to-face, answer any questions. And I'll go through and I'll talk about this and I'll talk about that journey. But the smile that I got around the tainting that ISO 9001 and quality assurance might have for you, we're endeavouring to take what are the true benefits and the true meaning of something like that. So one of the little ways that we go about helping organisations be growth focused, be efficient, use efficiently all those limited resources, the limited resources in this industry that you guys have got in the form of cash and the form of suppliers and supporters and volunteers, all those sorts of things. It's about taking the true intent of these standards. It's not about getting certified, it's not about the audit, it's not about documents and versions and all that sort of stuff. It's about using and understanding and efficiently using those limited resources that you've got in your organisation to achieve your mission and your passion and those sorts of things. So when we talk about these standards, it's one of the small ways we'll say, well, what's the best template, if you like, for a business plan in the world? Does it exist? Yes, it does. It's ISO 9001. ISO 9001 is the best business plan template. So any of your organisations, even the small parts of the organisations that you work in, if you lack a business plan or a simple 2 or 3 page strategic plan, that's the place to go and look. Now, some people might say, well, my experience with ISO 9001 in the past is we had milk crates full of folders and thousands of policies and procedures. Did you charge the head of your organisation with developing that? And probably in most situations, the answer to that question is no. We gave it to an administrative component of the organisation who sort of figured it out, and that's what they came up with. So what we've said with our mission and our cause to create organisations is let's look at the best world-class version of what we can use to help organisations. And so these 3 standards, and we can talk now more about 14001 and we can talk about examples as we go through that. Part of our process is to obviously coach and help and guide organisations through that journey, and you can do a lot of it for free with us here at Best Practice. Lots of it on our YouTube channel. 250 videos sitting on our YouTube channel, average about 3 minutes in length. It's for you guys in this sector, any sector that can't engage with us commercially, don't have the funds to engage with us commercially, but are realistically focused on getting some insights into how to do this. So I can do that. I can sit and I can shoot a video. It can take Jack and I. Jack's down the back there. Wave, Jack. Jack and I can sit together for 4 hours and shoot a video that will help everybody in this room, which means that I don't need to charge you for my time because I can help all of you. That's part of delivering that mission, if that makes sense. If you want to go that extra step, we can start talking about, if I can work out this device, we can start talking about what that next step in the journey is. If you've got external stakeholders or if you see a market opportunity, if you see that pitching for grants, pitching for funding, talking to large corporates around that piece on authenticity, we have a team that will come in and do the audit. They'll do the verification, they'll do the validation of the great things that you're doing and then give you the opportunity to display these marks. Now, it could be a certificate in the old days if you've been involved with ISO 9001 in the past. It could be that certificate that you needed for the grant application or the tender application. So that model now exists. I heard someone mention there from one of the local councils. In fact, it's my local council because I live up that way. Lots of the suppliers of those organisations or lots of the people looking to local government or state government or federal government for funding currently are asked to provide a quality assurance certificate. And I do lots of work with a number of charities where we do pro bono work with them to offer their certification to assist in their process. And one particular organisation I've been working with for 15 years, and we help them with their quality assurance certification, and it's a mandatory part of the funding applications that they put in. But what's happening to that organisation is they're now being asked for a safety certification because of the unique area that they work. And increasingly, the conversation is starting about ISO 14001. So quality, safety, and then environment. So with the view to the future, if you are seeing that a significant part of your funding, external funding sources are not from, say, cash sales or point of sale revenue, if you like, if they're coming from, rounds of funding, then I'm here today to just say be aware and take the time now to engage, say with us at Best Practice, with all the free stuff that we do. Up the back, we've got a magazine that we produce on a quarterly basis. It's free. Lots of leadership, management, little tips and tricks type articles. We've got a whole bunch of packs up the back there, hopefully one for everyone, and if not, we'll get them out to you as part of that strategy. So we're trying to bring the social media aspect of the previous presentation into this presentation. It's, for us, it's a really, really effective way with low cost to get to the people that we need to speak to. So it's a message that's resonating in all aspects. So while I'm here to talk about 14,001, I can definitely hammer home that message that it's definitely working for us, because we're able to help more people. We're able to do that with the limited resource that we have, which is effectively all my resources. So let me talk more about 14,001, what it is and how to make it really easy. Okay, all of those standards, they do get revised. So if you had an experience with ISO 9001, at any time in the last 30 years that it's been around and it was a negative one, I can honestly say that the current version of ISO 9001, the quality assurance standard, is far, far, far better than it's ever been. And I've been campaigning around risk for 15 years, the 15 years of my career that I've been doing this work and leading this organisation. And 14,001 is no different now. They're all based on a risk management approach. Now, I'll use risk management approach because it's a pretty common term at the moment, but in your organisations, I would be talking about leveraging opportunity, leveraging positive opportunity, positive messages, the positive things in terms of where you sit, if you like, in the waste stream. And I don't know the complexity of every single organisation in the room, but in terms of what I've been briefed on, it's a positive part. So we're, in terms of diversion of waste from landfill, for example, if you want to leverage that message, but equally all the benefits of doing that for the community. So 14,001, 9,001, 4801, there's a data security standard in terms of how much personal information you guys are carrying. They're all following the same format now, and it's what we would call an integrated management system. And I like to say it's the quality management system that you'd used, not the quality management system, but a quality system to deliver your strategic plan or a quality system to deliver your business plan. So this is all of the stuff that sits right below the high-level objectives of your organisation, taking this framework of what are our opportunities, how are we going to prioritise them, what are we going to leverage, and more importantly, what are we going to monitor and measure? What are the things, what are the 5 things or the 10 things that we're going to use to give us a really clear picture of our organisation's performance? So that, that ties in this little logo that we've got, which is a graph. I've been saying for a long time, and when I was immature and under 30 and out talking to people, I was saying, what can we use, what 50 things can we measure to get a clear picture of our organisation's performance? Just 50 things. And some of the larger organisations in the room, you'll be measuring stuff and there'll be thousands of reports and pages, and that's chewing up a lot of your funding and a lot of the money that you've got available to run your organisations. But maybe succinctly 50 things. And some of those could be environmental, some of them could be safety, some of them could be quality assurance related, financial, HR. So starting to look at that maybe balanced scorecard, if you've heard of that. So bringing all these things together. So these standards now, 14,001, it's tied into executing your business plan. So it's not something that I want you to be scared of. It's not something that, we've got to comply with another thing, another compliance requirement, including criminal checks and all the different checks we've got to do on people and all of the stuff that we've got to, declarations we've got to sign, all that sort of stuff. It's, our vision and our mission is about using things that are simple and succinct in terms of standards to follow, that have got a huge community of people contributing to building out these guidelines and standards. So if you've got a risk management system in place, which you probably tick the box on your professional indemnity and public liability insurance policies, if you're involved in that part of your organisation, you probably already ticked that you've got a risk management system in place to get a premium discount with your broker. That's where this sits in your organisation, and it's meant to be simple, if that makes sense. So hopefully I'm tying it together and I'm saying, well, have we said what we're going to measure? Have we worked out how we're going to do that in any aspect of the organisation? Have we got some policies around what we want to do in terms of the strategic plan and what our vision and mission is for our organisation? And if yes is is the answer to most of those questions, having an environmental stream threaded through that is going to see you complying with 14,001 and you're ready to be certified if you need to be. Does that help? Simple, succinct. If certification would add value to your organisation, that's when I would say to do it. But I wouldn't say to do it before that. If, and I'll just go back a slide, if using that green logo would help your organisation attract more funding, help you talk to your corporate bodies that you've had relationships with, or your anonymous people that give donations, if you feel that that would add some value to that conversation and it gives you something to talk about, then that's when we would engage. Because I won't engage with you unless I can see that you can leverage the investment you make with us, like any investment, like investing in shares or investing in property or any of that sort of stuff. If I can see that you'll get a dividend, then I'll help you. But if I can't see that, then my team, and some of them are at the back here, they'll walk away because they'll say, no, keep using all of our free stuff, because the energy flow between the two organisations is going to be one that's negative. Why are we doing this? Why are we paying for this? Why do we have to keep paying for this? This is really frustrating, all that sort of stuff. And my team, because from the Northern Beaches, would prefer to go surfing than to work with organisations that don't want to work with us, if that makes sense. So I've got to put more effort into social media so they can go surfing. Okay, so we've seen lots of these pictures before. I think it's a really good example of what we would talk to one of our typical corporate clients about, how they could tie into your industry and leverage that for a positive message. Does that make sense to everybody? So we would do lots of referring and recommending to these types of organisations, for example, that might walk into an op shop and buy all the forks and then go away and turn it into beautiful coat rack hooks, for example, or saucepan hooks. So that's the type of message that we would talk to our clients about who would be in the corporate space. The large builders, what can they do to divert waste from landfill, those sorts of things. Following that same stream, following that strategic message about the business plan, the dashboard of statistics that we're going to look at, the objectives and targets. So what we were hoping to do here is, and you've seen lots of messages because the previous presentation stole all my thunder, is some of the examples of that we start to tell those stories. Now, how 14,001 helps with this is in your organisation, 14,001 guides you through a risk management approach to decide on the stuff that's more important and that you can really leverage, and put aside the stuff that's less important. Now, in my office, in our organisation, we've got 30 people. We're a growing team. In our office, everybody panics about the soft plastics and the coffee cup. Everyone's got a keep cup. Rowan turned up to the ferry this morning with his keep cup. He's walking down and he's got it there in his hand, and we all had a chuckle. And that stuff's all really, really good. But I've got 30 people, and this morning, 15 of them got on aeroplanes. And 15 of them got in hire cars. And tonight, 15 of them are staying in hotels. So my organisation's environmental footprint is jet fuel, the burning of jet fuel. Does that make sense to everybody? It's not the paper that we recycle in the office, it's just not where our environmental damage is being caused by our organisation. So for us, it's important to look at and criticise the programs where we would buy, if we want to be genuine and we want to be authentic at best practice, we need to buy carbon credits to offset the emissions from the jet fuel. That's my environmental issue at best practice. We've got a 465 square metre office. When everyone walks in the morning, they hit the lights. I'm as guilty as everybody. Hit the lights and turn the lights on. But 3 sides of our office are windows that face east, and in the morning you've got to put sunglasses on because of the sun. So that's for us. If you want to talk about the war on coal, we can have that whole conversation. I'll show you a good slide around coal in a minute. But for us, in my organisation, and if this is a common issue for you guys in your organisations, have a think about that. What is the actual environmental issue? And so, yes, it's good to get everybody on board with the worm farm and the paper recycling and the soft plastics recycling in the office, because that's a good thing to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a small thing. But the big stuff for us, and that's where we work with the larger corporates, is looking at the real big stuff that is the real big issue. And for the most part, if you look at all the organisations that are, southwest of us here, up the hill into the city, and they're just offices, and they'll say, we don't have any environmental issues. There's nothing that we can do to change what we're doing and we can't improve, there's nothing we can measure. And I'll say, well, stop refitting your office every 2 years. So moving right along, I've talked about marketing, I've talked about grant and fund applications. I'm going to hang around if anyone's got any questions about that, and we can talk more about how to do that, and obviously promoting your organisation. Mapping out how your organisation complies with 14,001 and then having us verify that and approve you or certify you gives you the opportunity to use this logo. Business cards, vehicles, websites, any company stationery that you're using for funding applications. We'll also provide you with a certificate. We'll put you onto a Commonwealth Government register. That then is where the funding body will go to check and verify that our certificate's legit, if that makes sense. But not only that, that's the sort of external marketing side of things. More importantly, what our vision and mission is, to come back to what I started to talk about, is that your stakeholders would hopefully see an improvement in your organisation as a result of working with us. You might steal some tricks from our social media campaign and use them yourselves. Fantastic. You might steal some ideas from our certified magazine and use that in your business to run your next executive strategic workshop. You might do some training on our online training portal, and that's going to have an impact. So that's my mission. My mission is to work and influence your organisations to have your stakeholders more inspired to do business with you and help you and those sorts of things. So I've got a book tip. There's a book out there, and you may or may not have heard of it. It's written by Simon Sinek, and it's called Start With Why. It's a tiny little book. I don't know, what is it, boys? Less than 200 pages, thereabouts. It's 7 hours of audio, I'm being told. Don't forget about Amazon. It's on Amazon, on Audible. It's 7 hours, and if your commute is an hour each way or 40 minutes each way, you'll be through it in a week. Simon Sinek talks about starting with why, and I got up in this presentation, I started with why we exist, because we do, and it's a good story and it's what we're passionate about. But in terms of the influence that we would have with your organisations is, there's the first piece of advice and the first recommendation, and you get it for free. Get a copy of Start With Why by Simon Sinek and execute what he says to do. And you can do without buying the book, which is start with why. There's nothing in it, it's just Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Now, he's got a YouTube video that went viral. You can see him on YouTube. You can probably pick up pretty much everything that's in the book if you follow him on social media. But you can buy the book and get it summarised. It's about $30. I think it's $33 or $34 on Audible. If you haven't got Audible and you don't already listen to audiobooks, you can download Audible and get your first 2 books for free. But reframing your message to start with why, and as we continue to look at best practice we look for and filter through all this sort of stuff and say, well, what's good, what's bad, filter it out. That's the impact. So with 14,001 and a 14,001 management system and getting certification, so you're putting an environmental risk management system in place, just the same as your safety system, keeping it really simple, starting with the why, which would be your environmental policy, then you're going to get better engagement, it's going to be cheaper to put in place in your organisation, more efficient, and people get on board. Sound good? I'm ready for questions. What else have they given me to watch? Let's just quickly talk about coal, because it came up. We work with this coal mine on their environmental certification, and they've got the green logo out on the front fence, but it's a coal mine. So what we're doing with these guys, because of our passion and because of our efficiency and our vision and our mission and all that sort of stuff, this is just an example of how we can take an environmental management system and put it into a dirty industry. We still turn the lights on, like it or not. These lights are on. Now, they're incandescent light bulbs. In fact, they're 12-volt incandescent light bulbs. These are the most inefficient light bulbs you can buy in this room. So that only exists because we're having a conference in this room. Does that make sense to everybody? So we're all as guilty as everybody else. So the first thing that I would be looking at with any of you guys with corporate events is procurement of function venues that have lots of natural light. And that will start to make this hole smaller. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're working with this organisation to help them make less dust, to help them with paper recycling in their office, to help them reduce diesel consumption as they dig the hole, to help them reduce tyre consumption as they dig the hole, if that makes sense, to make the digging of the hole and the exporting of the coal as efficient as possible, and to keep that footprint down. Now, they're still digging a hole, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's where we work with all organisations to really look at the core. For those guys, it's not about coal, it's about diesel consumption and tyre consumption. Because those big tyres, if you've done any outback travel in Australia, they end up as signposts and little plaques in towns and all that sort of stuff, because once they go into landfill, they're there forever. And there are also they can be up to $400,000 each. So, yeah, it's a lot. The big 785 Caterpillar dump trucks, their tyres, they weigh in at about 3 tonne each, the tyres, and they can be up to $400,000 for a custom build of one of those tyres. Then they've got a useful life of probably about 4,000 or 5,000 hours, and that's what we're looking at. So we're looking at extending tyre life. We're looking at reducing diesel consumption. If we extend the tyre life, we can go up in tyre pressure. To go up in tyre pressure, it means we've got to have really good roads. And so the environmental initiatives for that particular coal mine was to go and buy more graders to make sure their dirt roads are in perfect condition all the time and that rocks haven't dropped off the back of dump trucks, because there's nothing worse than running over a rock with a $400,000 tyre and blowing it and reducing its useful life. Okay, thank you. Questions?
What's the 14,001 questions out there?
Who's running your material?
Thank you. How generic is the risk analysis for 14,001, and is adaptability to what we actually do?
So the question is, how generic is the 14,001 risk analysis? So what's happened now with the ISO standards is they've all been reorganised in terms of the shape of the document to follow the same risk management format. So if you've looked at risk management at all ever, we set the world standard here in Australia about 15 years ago. So the world's come into line with what we do. So we were world leading, if you like, with the original risk management standard AS 4360. I think it's now 31,000, ISO 31,000. So if you've ever done anything with risk, ISO 14,001, now the way the document's written just says follow that process. So identify what your environmental issues are, prioritise them. So let's pick the stuff that are low-hanging fruit. Let's pick the easy stuff to leverage. Let's pick the easy stuff to market and promote that. Then let's pick the stuff that's really, really important. So, I mean, I am a consumer and supplier to this industry. That's something that we do in our household. It's just part of what we've always done. It's just about getting involved. In our office, lots of collecting of books for the Lifeline book sale up in Turramurra. So, in fact, one of the partners of one of our staff is heavily involved in that process. So lots of that happens through best practice and through the process. But what really gets me is seeing my local facilities on the Northern Beaches on a Sunday night or a Monday of a public holiday, the rear and the front of the op shops completely piled up with just stuff that people are too lazy to take to the tip. It's not stuff that's going to go through your organisations. And that shits me. It's like you guys are just looking for the free ticket to dump rubbish. So the campaign that I'd love to get involved in is to prevent that illegal dumping that happens as part of your industry, because that shits me. You guys have got all the volunteers, everybody doing great stuff, and the first thing that happens on day one of week one is they're stressed because they've got to deal with all this shit that's been illegally dumped. So that's my thing, and I don't know how to, I mean, I have a voice and I have a social media campaign and that sort of stuff. I don't know how I get involved, and it's something you've got to think about. But in terms of risk management framework, unfortunately, that'd be the thing that I would start to work on first. Because unfortunately, you guys have then got surplus waste that is $193 a tonne to go to general landfill. You've got to find other avenues to divert it from waste, because I assume, unless you've got a grant or a funding or support from a landfill facility, you've got to pay to dump that. And so you're going to see two big hits. You're going to see the cleanup of that particular issue, and you're going to see reduction in cost in of running the organisation. I would argue that's probably your largest environmental issue in this industry right now, if that makes sense. So following that risk management, prioritising, I mean, I can add to the debate and I can passionately campaign it, but are there other executives in the organisation or other people in the organisation that might say, you know what, we'll get some good wins with a composting facility, or we'll get some good wins with looking at other avenues for our products. So it might not go onto the shelf in the op shop. We're looking for whether it can be compressed and used in insulation or those sorts of things. So so a corporate program with someone like Dunlop, who are owned by Pacific, brands and looking at, they look at foam recycling, for example. So the best underlay that you can get from under carpet is recycled foam, not stuff that's made from virgin chemicals. And so you'll see the speckly carpet underlay, if you've ever seen that. The speckly foam that's all multicoloured, that's it, made out of recycled foam. So they're not necessarily mattresses, it's the polyethylene foam, but yes, there's a thin piece of, thick foam mattresses, yes. But most mattresses have got springs and foam on the top. So, investigating and working with organisations around the use of, say, the garment industry and saying, well, is there anything that we can pull out of that waste stream that becomes a repurposed product? And so they may feel better about working with you on that sort of program than handing over cash, for example. And so as we start to look at the prioritising of the environmental initiatives, some of this stuff's really, really big and it's a really, really big challenge, but it has a big, big impact. So 14,001, your question was about the risk framework, was using that risk framework to have the conversation, to have people understand it's about features and benefits. So you're choosing initiatives to run with in an environmental system that have got features and benefits. And that's what 14,001 is all about. So, this terminology, environmental aspects and environmental impacts, at the end of the day, you want to then come down to your dashboard and say, well, what can we measure? And then why would we measure it? We would measure it because we can tell an amazing story in the media and it'll go viral on Facebook. And so we're going to choose an environmental initiative that's going to go viral on Facebook, and we saw that in the previous presentation. And so I will always step into the conversation and say, stop recycling paper in the office, as bad as that sounds. Put your effort into that because that's going to have a bigger impact for the organisation, and it is actually the thing that's going to change the world, if that makes sense. And then, or maybe it's delegating. So the executives of the organisation are saying, let's delegate someone to do the recycling program in the office kitchen for your organisation, and the executives spend the time on the big hitting things, if that makes sense.
Okay. Perhaps in closing, Karen, the opportunity for us with ISO could be, for example, when we got kicked out of the South Australian Minister's office because he blamed us for having or being responsible for own illegal dumping. We perhaps could have presented him with a plan that we do try to discourage it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the final thing I'll say, which I haven't covered in the presentation, is just really simple. If you want to write down any note, and if you haven't written down anything yet, write this down. Who, what, when, where, and how. I already talked about why. We talked about why because it's a good thing for the environment. We talked about it's a priority. It can go viral on Facebook. But 14,001 and any of these ISO systems is all about that plan, just the who, what, when, where, how. And if you write that down, and as you're having the conversation, if any of this stuff comes up, then you can start to say, well, who's going to do this? How are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? Where are we going to do it? And if you can have that captured, doesn't need to be documented, you're 99% of the way there to get certified. And then if someone asks the question, we want you to be certified and we're going to give you this $3 million check for this thing that you want to do, then you can come to us and you can say, okay, we need an audit. Don't worry too much if you can't afford certification. It's important to just watch the videos, get a copy of the standard and start implementing your management system, and then follow the advice that we give you for free here on YouTube. So if you're a charity, if you're a not-for-profit organisation, or even if you're a small organisation who's just getting started and you're a small startup, it's important to be thinking simply and efficiently about how you run your organisation. Looking at our YouTube videos, looking at the stuff we're doing to help you, following the free downloads, getting a free copy of our magazine, all that stuff, that's going to help you without necessarily having to pay for something from best practice. So get involved, because part of the process is that what we're really passionate about is you having really simple systems to manage your risks so that you can efficiently grow your organisation.